Hello, hello, and welcome to Journey to SEA 2024. Thank you so much for joining me on this pre-carnival Tuesday. I am here to talk to you about past tense for reports and character development actually character description for narratives. And we're going to touch on graphics again. So, this is our wrapping up week in terms of wrapping up some major concepts. And then, as we're going through, remember if you don't already have the schedule, you can download the schedule so that you can follow along and make sure that you are working with the time that we're working with as well. So, thank you so much for joining me this morning. So happy to have you. And if you're new to the live and you're wondering who is this lady speaking to you here, my name is Shelly Ann Edwards Barron, and I'm a creative writing specialist who works with multisensory learning. Yeah, that's a mouthful. What multisensory learning is, it's simply the use of multiple senses during the teaching of creative writing. And I know for the most part, we're familiar with using manipulatives and different things for, the math and the science and so on. But when it comes to creative writing, most people get stuck. And so that's why I'm here to help you get unstuck, help you support your child or your students, and to make creative writing a little bit more fun and interactive. And so this week we are working with, like I said, characters with narratives, past tense with reports, and with graphics, a general review. And so let us start with reports as I usually do. So let me get something up here to show you. Um, Actually, you know what? I might actually put these in the chat first, and then we will go through with the past tense. Now, when it comes to past tense, there are actually different types of past tense. And what happens is that most people think, okay, there's only one, there's the simple past. But in addition to that, we get the different types of past tense. We have the ones that would be used in a report would be, well, simple past, of course. And then we have past continuous and past perfect. So if you've never heard of these, because yes, these are the technical terms that, English teachers use, students may not have heard those terms exactly, but I'll show you what they are. So let's go with past. I'm going to have to share this one in the comments, so I'll put it up on screen in a little bit. So let's go with what we know simple past, the subject, verb in past tense, and then the rest of the sentence. So I'm not going to really tackle that one. I want to spend the time working on past continuous and past perfect so you know what it is and how it can be used in a report, right? So this one that I'm putting up here, oh, I should have labeled it. I didn't, but this is past continuous. Now, past continuous is when you use a form of the verb to be and the ing form of the verb following that, and then, well, you would have the rest of the sentence. Now, with past continuous, let me see if I have any other notes on that. But it's something that you can look up. You can definitely Google it to make sure you have materials and so on. And one of the absolute fabulous places you can find would be actually any grammar directed toward English as a second language learners. They just really, really break down the grammar into manageable, understandable bits. So you want to look for um, ESL. That's what it is, English as a second language. So look up ESL past um, continuous explanation or worksheets, and you would get tons and tons and tons of information regarding that. But for the past continuous, this is an example, and here's how you would use it. So you were doing something in the past, and then you noticed someone else doing something in the past, or something else that happened in the past. And so you can put it like this, which is the um, main part of the sentence, the first part having the past continuous, which would be was proceeding. And then what did you see? You saw or you observed Richard going into the Standard 5 classroom. So was proceeding, that's the past continuous. So you were in the process of doing something. So it's an active continuous action that happened in the past. And then you saw, and notice that verb there is simple past. I observed. And then after that, Richard was going into, so he was doing something as well. And so this is the way you would put it. You proceeding, past continuous, saw or observed, past simple, and then the other person in an action, which would be the continuous action. Now, why would you consider doing, including sentences like these in a report? Well, for one thing, it shows a really high level of grammatical understanding and a mix of grammatical structures. It also shows that you know past, the whole past tense with the past continuous and how to use it effectively. And once it is done correctly, then these are ways that students gain marks when you see in the rubric where it says a variety of sentence structures. And this is how you can get the grammar clear, get high marks in the grammar, as well as that whole concept of the variety of sentence structures. Now, notice there's a word in there, a transition related to time that includes that is included there that really helps the sentence work. So you see that word when after cafeteria. This is what really helps the sentence work with the different tenses and how it's worked in together. Um, you can also use while to create these kinds of sentences, and I'll show you the same sentence restructured using the word while. So we can do it two ways. I'll do it with one simple way. And in this one, notice in the sentence on the screen, you have the pronoun I used twice. So I'm going to rewrite it to show you how you could remove one of those if you begin with while instead of using when as it is in the sentence on the screen. So what we would say then is while proceeding toward the cafeteria, and then we have a comma because now this becomes a transition phrase. And then we can say, um, I observed Richard going into the standard 5M classroom. Right, so give me a minute, I'll share screen so you can actually see what it looks like. Right, so here we go. While proceeding toward the cafeteria, I observed Richard going into the standard 5M classroom. So here is where we're using some um, the passive voice kind of in between here, removing the pronoun so that we could focus on the action itself rather than who was actually proceeding, simply because we already have I later on. We can do that and get a really neat, complex sentence with a transition phrase that works perfectly well to demonstrate a student's understanding of the past tense and so on. So this is really, I'm just hinting to you and showing you some of these things. I'm not, of course, in these Tuesday morning sessions, I don't really have the time to go through an actual lesson with you. But like I said, do a Google search for the ESL, English as a Second Language, past continuous or past tense breakdown, and you would find a lot of information. So coming in the future, I am working on some grammar worksheets and so on. But for now, I'm just really trying to make sure you understand where you can find some of these things and what they actually look like so that you'd be able to use them and guide your students or child in using them. So this is an example of past continuous, right? And so just to repeat, when we're talking past tense in reports, we're talking um, past simple, we're talking past continuous, and we're talking past perfect, right? So I'm going to put that up so that you can get the three so you know exactly what you're searching for when you look for the information, right? So past tense, and these are the three versions of past tense that work really well in reports: past simple, past continuous, past perfect. Now, of course, you can write um, a report in, simple terms. Past simple, that's the one most students learn, just put the verb in the past tense. With past continuous, you notice we have the verb to be and the ing, and of course, the verb to be in past. And then with past perfect, instead of the verb to be, we use the verb had, right? So to have, we use had. And so let's go on to that one. And like I said, I'm not touching past simple because I think that one is um, pretty obvious and clear. So let me share screen to show you past perfect. Right, there we go. And I love, now notice this came from test-english.com. You can see the URL to the bottom. It's kind of spelled out. This is what I mean when I say the ESL um, programs that are online. You get way, way, way detailed information and very simple and presented in a way that it's easy to understand and to explain. And so this one gives you the example of past perfect in a statement, which is where they mean what they mean by positive. In a question, how do you ask a question like that? In a negative, so pretty much how you answer in a negative and positive, right? And or I guess the negative here would be making a statement, both negative and positive. And this works well in um in a report when you get a statement like, prior to the incident, Mrs. Camille had asked the class to do something. And so you can use that kind of information when you're comparing and you're putting past actions, more than one past action in the sentence, and you want to show which one came first, right? And so this is the example on the screen. I opened the door and I saw that someone had left a note. So if we want to put that in the report sense, you can say something like, I entered the classroom and noticed the, um, I guess what would we say that? Let's go back to Richard because Richard is a naughty boy, right? I I entered the classroom and noticed Richard had um, taken Camille's lunch. So, you could put it in a sentence like that. That's probably, yeah, I should have gotten some actual examples for you, but the example on the screen pretty much explains what it is, but I'm thinking of situations where you can use it in a report. And it's not the kind of past tense that you want to have all over the report. I would say maybe once or twice is when you would use um, something like that. So let's say you're talking about an injury. Somebody had left something open and another person bumped into it and got injured. Um, they like that prompt that had the students playing in the classroom and breaking the bulb. Maybe the bulb had been broken and somebody got injured on the glass. And so there are different ways that you can create this past perfect in the report to really, again, elevate the grammar and the structure of the grammar and the format of it. So let me show another graphic so that you can see the actual format, because this one kind of just gives an example. The format of it um, is the verb had plus the past participle. Right? So this is an example of the past perfect tense and how you create it. Right? She hadn't finished the test. So subject plus had plus past participle plus rest of sentence. Then if it's negative, subject plus had not, because of course in a report we're not using the contraction, so we don't want to say hadn't. And then the past participle plus, and then we have question. In a question format like this, you would need to put it in reported speech, and you can say something like, um, Mrs. Robinson inquired if Richard had finished his homework. That's something that you can have in a report like that. Um, so yes, it's a question kind of thing, but it's in reported speech, and we don't want to have direct questions in a report. Everything needs to go in reported speech, what people say. Therefore, we flip it and put it into reported speech. But in any case, it's still the format of past perfect. And the whole point of past perfect is to show the relationship between actions that happened in the past. And from time to time, you will need to be able to say things using past perfect in a report. So, what I would advise then for this week, and I can stop sharing this now. For this week, remember, as per usual, what we're doing in terms of our review time is that we're spending two 20 to 30-minute sessions working on concepts and practicing them. And then we're doing a full report in the third session, and in that report, you want to be practicing and demonstrating understanding of what you studied during the week. So here's my recommendation. For the first 30-minute session that you're going to spend working on understanding past tense, you want to review your child's understanding of simple past, regular and irregular verbs, the past continuous, and the past perfect. So you would give the definition, show the diagrams, show the relationship, check in with their understanding, and then perhaps do a couple worksheets. So you would want to actually go do a search, and you can go to that testenglish.com site where they have lots of great explanations and practice. Or you could just do any Google search for past continuous, past simple, past perfect, and get examples to practice that. So that's what you're doing first session. Second session, you're looking specifically at how these are used in reports, right? So you're spending a 30-minute session on that, looking at how they're used in reports. So you're doing two things with this. You're looking at a couple of sample reports, if you can find any that have it, or you are looking at your child's past writing and seeing any places in previously written reports where past perfect might be better, or the past continuous might be better. And so you're practicing that and looking at how they can use the past perfect and past continuous in a report structure, the kind of report that we do for SEA. And so after you practice that for the first two 30-minute sessions during the week, on another session, you're giving prompts, and the child is writing a full report. And part of the instructions would be in this report, I want you to use past continuous twice, past perfect twice. And that's what they're looking at. So now, in addition to all the things that they've already done and that they've accustomed to doing, that they've practiced before, now this week we're adding some information. Now, past perfect and past continuous should not be completely new to your child. They should be familiar with the structure. They may not know the names past continuous and past perfect. So you don't have to actually tell them the names. You can just say, okay, past tense with the ing, things happening continuous in the past. Or, putting two actions in the past together, we use had, the past tense with had. So you don't have to use the technical terms if you think that's going to be an issue, but most definitely you want your child to be able to practice them. And if they're struggling with one or the other, then choose one, work with it first, then come back and do the other one and continue with that. We have between now and the SEA exam, we have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 weeks, and that's more than enough time to do a refresher in these things if it is, your child is having some challenges. Because remember, you're writing every week and making sure that you incorporate some of these activities and discussions and these skills in the writing that you're writing every week. So you're not just writing every week because you want to practice. What exactly are you practicing? You need to have a target. And this week, your target is past perfect, past continuous, and simple past. With the simple past, you're looking at the what you call it, the regular and irregular verbs. Make sure they know how to spell these effectively, what you drop, what you add, and so on. And then with the continuous, we're using the verb to be. With the past perfect, we're using the verb to have. And so students should be familiar with past participles, and they should have covered that before. So, like I said, it should not be new, but now we're looking at implementing some of these grammatical skills in their writing. So that's it for reports. And so just to recap, we're working with the past simple, past continuous, and past perfect, making sure that students are able to effectively use past tense. And just as a reminder of that, we have two general formats that we can use. One we can use with while, and the other we use with when. I was proceeding toward the cafeteria when I observed Richard going into the standard 5M classroom. That's using when. And then we have while. While proceeding toward the cafeteria, I observed Richard going into the standard 5M classroom. So there are options, and when and while are the two most common words that would help you write those sentences effectively. All right. So past simple, past continuous, past perfect. That's what you're revising this week. All right. Nice. So now let us shift gears. And sometimes I think I should have like a little screen transition. I must see if I could yeah. So this is my screen transition, right? We're moving on to narratives now. So with narratives this week, I want you to really kind of focus on character description. Now, character description, we're looking at three things as well. Um, so that when we say character descriptions, most people think they go straight to physical descriptions. And that is simply because I know a lot of students, they forget that part of it. But with character descriptions, you're not just looking at the physical descriptions, you're looking at talking about how characters feel, the emotional state during the story, and you're also talking about their behavior and their actions. Most students don't have trouble with talking about the actions, but it's worth paying attention to because a lot of times what happens is that actions are neglected. And so working with the actions and paying attention to it helps you with adding in more details that could make the story a lot more interesting. So with character descriptions, again, we're looking at three things. This is what we're revising this week. And so we're looking at physical descriptions, of course, right? Make sure I spell descriptions correctly, right? So we're looking at physical descriptions, emotional state is what I'm going to call it, in terms of feelings and how characters react to certain things. And we're talking about behavior, right? So let me put that up on screen so you would know exactly what it is we're talking about. Um, we're dealing with, nope, not this one. Where did I put it? Right, this one. Character description, we want to look at physical descriptions, emotional state, and behavior. Because remember, our character is a complete being, they're not just one sided. And so you don't want to kind of like, just chuck in a whole lot of physical descriptions because we need character descriptions. For readers to really connect with a character and to feel like if the character makes sense, we're not only putting in physical description, we also have to pay attention to the character's reactions to what's going on and their behavior. And when I say reactions, I mean reactions in terms of behavior and emotional state. How do they feel? So, with character physical descriptions, there are two things I want you to remember. Physical descriptions need to make sense with what's going on with the story, and they need to be spread throughout the story. And so for it to make sense, you really want to ask the question, why do readers need to know this? How is it going to help them, understand the story or understand the character better? So we don't want, like random hairstyles and colors and random eye colors. Eye colors are, you know, that's the one that troubles me the most. So let me just pause a little bit here and say this. The majority of us, and when I say us, I mean, like SEA parents, teachers, and so on, the majority of us in Trinidad and Tobago have dark brown or light brown eyes, so that when your students are writing about themselves, especially in stories where they are the first person, have them check their eye color to make sure that they're, working with descriptions that make sense for them. Because I've had students who talk about blue and green and hazel eyes, and I know there are people who have blue and green and hazel eyes, but it's really important for me as a person of color to understand that our students, our children, are being taught to describe characters that look like them. And so you can write fantasy, you can write science fiction, you can write all kinds of different things. But please encourage your child, your children, your students to describe characters that look like them. They can be in stories too. They can see themselves in the story, even if it's fantasy. Um, they can still see themselves in the story. So, yeah, that's my soapbox for today. I promise no more. Well, no, I shouldn't promise anymore. I don't know if it'll come up again. But um, please encourage the, jet black eyes. I don't know how many people, if I've ever seen anybody with jet black eyes. Usually jet black eyes are kind of reserved for fantasy, where you see people are sometimes, wizards or witches, or they're possessed with something. Usually most people don't have jet black eyes. So dark brown, brown, hazel even, we could come up with, there are the colors. Do a check. Pay attention to the eyes and how those are being described. Plus, don't just randomly put it in. And any character physical description, don't just randomly put it in. So when characters refer to themselves and they talk about their thin frame or their skinny fingers, and um why? That's my question. I always ask why. Why do we need to know this? How does that fit with the rest of the story? So, if you want to talk about a character being skinny or slim, how does that impact the story? Is it that you want to show that the character might be stronger than they look, or in comparison to another character, they might be considered to be weak? What's the reason for the character description? um, One of the best ways to get that character physical description into a story and to have it make sense is to use what we call description in action. Right, I'm going to put that up on screen. What that actually means is whatever the character is doing, use that as an opportunity to add in a physical description. And physical description means actual body or clothing, shoes, all of those things. Right? So if you're saying the character is like running down the hall, for example, maybe the sneakers are squeaking on the terrazzo. You do that, you get a 2 for 1 in a sentence like that. You get a character description because now we know the character is wearing sneakers, and you get a setting description. Now we know that the floor is made of terrazzo. Or we can have um, the heels of the teachers, pumps, or um, heels of the teachers, jet black pumps, click clacked on the tiles. We get 2 for 1 there again. So we do this because the character is walking, and so we could introduce that while she's walking. Then we have characters playing with their hair. I twirled my plaits or my braids. I put my braids up in a ponytail. I grab characters fighting or whatever the case is. I read a story recently where um one character broke the character broke her sister's thing, and the sister, jumped on her and started to thump her, grab the hair, grab the t-shirt, punch in the face, whatever, if it's an altercation. Um so that you could, get in some character descriptions there. You can have the sun um you know tanning your already dark skin, or you can have blistering your skin, or cool breeze wafting against my chocolate face, so all those kinds of things, where you have interaction with the setting, interaction with another character, and using that to bring in the character physical description. For the emotional description, you want to have characters react to things that are happening around them. And with emotional descriptions, there are two ways to do it. You describe how the character is feeling, just stating and explaining what that feeling is like. And you can use figurative language and so on in all of that. So you can just, um, you can simply state, I was furious. That works sometimes. I know teachers tell students, banish the boring words and describe it, always describe it. Well, here's the thing. There is such a thing as having too much description. Because remember, your narrative is a balance between narration and description. And so you don't want to overwhelm readers with trying to see what something looks like or feels like and neglect the plot. Sometimes you need to just do quickly, I was furious. And then you describe your behavior after that. And so it works. Or you can say, blood rushed to my cheeks, flushing them red. So we get some character description, and we know blood rushing to cheeks could mean anger or embarrassment. So you would still have to add some explanation. And that's the thing with some of these descriptions. While a description can be very useful, would readers understand what the description is for and would they make the correct conclusion? So blood rushing to my cheeks and me being flushed. What does that mean? Am I embarrassed or am I angry? So we need to add some behavior to that to make it clear. And so don't focus too much or only on the description of the feelings. We also need to add in the behavior and some physical description to make sure the scene, whatever is being described, is complete and that readers will understand what's going on. So so when it comes to the character description, remember we're working with physical descriptions and we're using something called description in action, and we're looking at emotional state, and with emotional state we're describing what that sensation is like, whatever emotion it is, and we are also labeling it from time to time. So we don't always say blood rushed to my cheeks and I was flushed. I couldn't believe this was happening. I'm so embarrassed. Complete, complete the description. And that's something that I believe students really need to understand. Character description is not just about dropping in a descriptive phrase or sentence here or there. It's all about making the description work for the character, making the description fit the story, fit the scene, fit the setting, so that readers benefit by understanding more of what's going on. They're able to visualize the situation, visualize the actions, and really get into that full understanding of what is going on, what is the mood, how are characters feeling? How am I supposed to feel about this? What are my thoughts on these things? That's really why you want the setting and character descriptions, to get to the reader. It's all about the reader connecting with the story and getting this full understanding of what's taking place, what you're trying to describe. So, last time I'm repeating this before we move on with character descriptions. We want physical descriptions, emotional state, and behavior. And you're really looking for a way that you could integrate them and describe them overall. So, in your practice and your revision this week, remember, two 30-second, I'm saying 30-second, whoops, that would be really quick, wouldn't it? Two 30-minute practice sessions and then a full-on narrative. That's what you're working with, right? So in this first 30-minute session, you want to go through, what are the different areas that we can describe for physical character descriptions. Get some ideas for hair and, body size and clothing and the hands and limbs and so on, accessories, shoes and so on. Get some ideas, some descriptions. Also emotional state, get some phrases and descriptions, some expressions. See where you could use personification. Personification is one of the really beautiful ones because you can personify the emotion and then give it some behavior. So anger or embarrassment kicked me in the gut, or anger slapped me in the face, um jealousy ate away at my insides, So you can use personification here perfectly to really get that emotional state going, or you can just like describe that physical feeling, blood rushing, heart thumping, sweating, those kinds of things, and to really describe emotional states. So you want to go through, make a list, see how that goes. Then we want to look at behavior. What do characters do in reaction to these emotional behaviors and the conflict that's happening in the story? What is the actual behavior? So, people could storm out of a room in a rage. They could slam the door. They could slide down off of chairs and try to hide. They could shiver in a corner, in fear and those kinds of things. So, what is the behavior associated with these emotional states and, what characters are actually feeling? And so you spend your first 30 minutes working on that, getting a list, reading stories that have a few of these. And then in your second 30 minutes, you want to practice using them in sentences to describe different aspects of things. Go back to previously written stories and see where you can fill in some information, right? And so that you could fill in the details and, where can I use some more emotional state expressions and behavior to match? Go back and look at stories that were already done, do some rewriting, do some, see how this fits kind of thing. And then all of this is in preparation for when you do a full-on narrative that would include what you've practiced and some of the vocabulary and expressions that you've practiced during the week. So between now and next week, Tuesday, I know next week Tuesday is Carnival, but we're in exam mode, so I know most of you are still working with your child. Um, this is primarily for parents. Teachers would be off unless you're doing lessons, and like me, you're having sessions because students are finally free during the day. Um, So we are continuing. So between now and next week Tuesday, this is what you're working on for the narratives. Spend a 30-minute session. If you can do more, maximum 1 hour. If you can do more, maximum 1 hour, because you don't want to get to the point where the student is overwhelmed and feel like if somebody's hitting them over the head with with these descriptions. So you don't want to do too many. So 30 minutes to an hour reading, highlighting. So you see how this works, you see how that works. Consider these descriptions, making a list. That's what you're working with. And then the emotional state, behavior, you're doing all of that first session. Second session, you're practicing using previously written material to see how you can make changes and add in some of these. And then in the final stage, when you're writing that full report, you're looking for one character, physical description, and emotional reaction in each paragraph. So that's the aim. If you fall short of that, that is fine. You would still have more than just one or two, because the average story would run like about 5 to 6 paragraphs. If you're dealing with a child who's writing four and you aim for one in each paragraph, that's four that you get. If they fall short, they might get three. That is perfectly acceptable. So really, and look at how it's integrated into the session, right? Into the writing. So that is it for narrative. So I know that now you have your idea on how it is you're moving forward with that. And then, yeah, this is my, DIY. We're dealing with graphics now. I hope it was the right side around. So let's move on to the comprehension. Yeah, one of these days I'm going to actually do some fancy transitions. So let's move on to the graphics. So with graphics, there are a couple things to pay attention to. And the number one thing is that graphics present information visually. That is the main thing to consider. So I need to put that. So number one note with graphics, right? They present information visually. And what I mean by that is that the information in graphics, the ideas and so on that are shared, they're not only shared with the meaning of the word or the content of the word, so the child understands the vocabulary. The thing with graphics is that you're also relying on how the information is organized and formatted in the graphic itself. And so we're looking at size of font, placement of font, whether it's bold or not, how many images are included, where those images are placed, and so on. So it's not just the word itself, information or sale. It's the fact that the word is put in all caps, larger than everything else on the page, at the center top of the page. And so pay attention to all of these different elements. And that's why I'm saying with graphics, information is presented visually. And so we're looking at size, we're looking at images included, whether they fit or not, and all of these things coming together to help with understanding what's the purpose, what are they trying to get done, etc. And just as with purpose, and no, I remember we looked at purpose a few sessions back. When you're identifying what is the purpose of a graphic, it is not only to persuade or to inform or to instruct. Those are really the three different reasons people create graphics. We want to give information but present it visually so that readers can get it quickly. We want to instruct on step by step process of doing something. Um, what is it? A flow chart is an example of that. And you might also want to persuade, so like an advertisement or a flyer, they want to persuade people to purchase or to attend an event, right? Purchase a product or attend an event, engage with services, whatever the case is. So that's general. But when you're dealing with purpose, and you can get a purpose question with a graphic, when you're dealing with purpose, you always have to state, persuade, who to do what. You have to say, instruct who to do what. And if you're talking about inform whom about what. So you have to complete your answer with those purpose questions. Now, the good news is that with graphics, there are only 4 questions with the graphic. The not so good news is that each question is worth 2 marks, and so the graphic is usually worth 8 points. And the graphic is an area that students can gather marks if it is they understand how to approach the graphic and really understand it. And so taking it from that perspective of being having the visual elements, that is definitely going to help with the child understanding the graphic a lot better. And when you're answering questions, so let's look actually at the 2023. Now I'm using 2023 because it is the most recent one. Of course, this is last year's SEA exam. Let's take a quick look at that graphic and see what is happening there. And we look at the 4 questions, right? And of course, I advocate going directly to the questions. So we're looking at the questions first, and then we will go to the graphic itself. So let's see the kinds of questions that we get. So we have this question: which two images in the advertisement will encourage outdoor activities? Immediately you see it's an identification kind of question, but it's also requiring the student to interpret. The student has to know, when we're talking about encourage, this is a persuasive kind of thing. What would entice somebody um to work with the outdoor activities? What images you're looking for? So we're looking directly at the image and analyzing the graphic. Then we have give two reasons why the words garage sale are written in big, bold, capital letters. Two reasons. So if you say it's to get the reader's attention, then that's one. So to make readers pay attention and to make them focus on the flyer, that's the same thing written in two different ways. So we really have to pay attention to answering questions that deal with the font or the text and why text is written in certain ways. Then we have give two reasons why a person might want to arrive early. This is another inferential question. So these are all inferential questions with 2 marks, right? Reason one, reason two, and why would you want to come early to the sale? We will check that in the graphic just now. And then suggest two other images that can be used. So now we're going what we call author and you type questions. We're going beyond the graphic itself for the child to interpret and to show that they understand why certain graphics were used, why certain images, sorry, were used in the graphic. And so notice 2 points, well, 2 marks, 2 marks, 2 marks, 2 marks. All the questions are worth 2 marks. They are all inferential questions. Even though we have two reasons here, you have to think about this. Two images, you have to think about which one of the images would have outdoor activities. You also have to think about other images that could be added based on the type of advertisement this is. And so let's go back up now and see what the graphic is. And so we see we have the garage sale, it's huge. Why would we have capital, bold, and the size that it is? Reasons, it's a headline. Headlines are normally used to get the reader's attention, and so you want them to pay attention. When you're passing and you see these big words, you stop to read because you look at what is this that somebody's putting so large? Definitely. But another reason is that so people would know what the event is, because it could be a supermarket sale, it could be a closing down sale, it could be it could be a different kind of sale. Um, Other than a garage sale. A garage sale is something specific. And so you want readers to know immediately what the flyer is about. Um, what else, what can we see that encourages outdoor activities? Students have to recognize what each of these images are below here and which ones suggest outdoor activities. We have the bicycle and we have the football. We wouldn't use any of these others with outdoor activities. What else would be added? If it's a house, I would think there's a fridge and a television, maybe. People might want to get a fridge and a television pretty cheaply from somebody who is migrating. And why would people want to come early? Now we're looking at all these elements and looking for something that would give somebody who is early a benefit. And what do we find? First 25 customers get 10% off. So I want to get there early because I want to be in that 25 customer group to get 10% off. And so They tell me come for 10, I might turn up there like about 9, wait outside, or walk in and say, "Hey, I'm here. Put me down on the list. When all you open at 10, I'm around," right? Because I want to get the 10% off. So in addition to being priced to go, I get 10% off, and I asking for the fridge, right? I want the fridge and the TV. Y'all can keep the rest of the stuff. Don't need no bicycle. I can walk, right? Um, but in any case, you understand the point that I'm making with the analyzing it. So this then, we know it's important because it's in a circle by itself to draw the reader's eyes there. And so when you're studying graphics, you're looking at everything is used for a reason. Every element is included for a reason. And sometimes elements could be missing, and then students could be asked what detail is missing. So they have to know, if it's an advertisement, what are the elements of an advertisement that should be there. You need a headline, you need some graphics, you need contact information, you need to know what it's about, what you're getting, date, time. So you want to go through and study advertisements and see what advertisements include, what flyers include, what flowcharts include, all the different types of graphics, what they include, and then you can look at analyzing them so you can see if something is missing or not, what each element is used for, how it contributes to achieving the purpose of the graphic. And so these are the things that you consider when you're looking at graphics. And so there are a list of graphics. I mean, flyers and advertisements, they're not the only ones. I think there was a flow chart one time that sometimes you can see like an index, or there are a few. And so this is what you want to practice, and then you want to go through the questions. So this week, what you're doing is that in the first 30-minute session, so yes, we have two 30-minute sessions and then one session where you do a full practice. So in the first 30-minute session, you want to make sure the student understands the different types of graphics and the elements of the graphic. What do they include? Then you want to, in the other one, you want to look at the questions. How are the questions phrased? How are they answered? And so this is what I do with my students in my Sunday session. We go through all the different types of graphics. Well, I think next week is when we're doing poetry. I think we're doing graphics next week, week after. But in any case, we're going to go through the different types of graphics. We will review the past papers and go through the different graphics that came from 2019 to 2023. Look at the questions that were asked, how the questions are worded, what does that mean in terms of how you respond, and I'm going to show them how to respond effectively to questions in a graphic to get the 2 points. Because remember, these are inferential questions. They have two ideas, most of them. You have to complete your answer in order to get the 2 points, and so the 2 marks. So I'm going to show my students those things, and then they'll get a graphic to practice in class so that I can see how they're answering, and then they'll get a graphic to take home and they practice that. And then the real test is, how do they apply this information at school? So I check in with them and I asked for the ELA papers as well so that I can see how they respond in a school setting, in a mock exam setting, in a practice test setting, so that I can guide effectively. So these are the things that you want to do as well. Once you understand what you're about, you can do the same things with your child. Work with them, practice them once you have the time as well. So this is it for the comprehension. So today's session, we looked at the past tense with reports, and we did that first. So we did simple past, which, well, I didn't go through detail in simple past, but we looked at past continuous and past perfect. For the narratives, we looked at character description, having three aspects to it: physical description, emotional response, and behavior. And for the comprehension, we looked at graphics. Now, for those of you who want to get some additional information on this, if you don't already have the past papers, I have access to the past papers. You can download um, let's see, you can download the blank ones. If you want answers, I have the answers for sale. So the ELA past papers answers, that is just 150. And what I did was to group them. So just as I'm going through the answers, and we're doing graphics at a time, we're doing fiction at one time, we're doing nonfiction one time, I grouped them so that you can look at the answers and you can study each one separately. For those of you who are working with the reports and narratives, I have the report writing series, which is 5 reports, right? 5 report challenge. That one is 135. And it includes 6 sample reports. So if you want to see what reports going to look like and you want to get an idea of the past perfect and all of these, you can check them. I can't remember, I wrote these some time ago. Um, but they are going to be following the structure, past continuous. You'd have some of those in there too. For those of you who are looking for narrative support, my 7 stories challenge series is 145, and that one includes 7 sample stories in addition to some of the details that you can use to really develop the narrative writing. So you want to see how descriptions are done. You want to see how that description and action works out in a sample story. You can get those, and those include additional resources such as a template, some vocabulary, how to do the description, how to plan the report, the story and the report. Both of them have some planning, how to analyze it, how to edit, how to make changes. So there's a lot of information in that. And finally, this one isn't out yet. I am doing right now the some creative writing samples, just straight up samples, where you can see I'm doing this would have like 3 reports and 3 stories. And so I'm doing these very particular. This is why it's taking a little bit longer to get it done, because I'm particularly going to include some past perfect and some past continuous so that you can see how that is done. I'm working on with the narratives, making sure there's description and action and all the emotions are there and everything is there. So these would be stories that you can read that would have all the different elements, and the reports, it would have all the different elements that we've been discussing. So I'm kind of taking a little longer than I planned. I was hoping to have them done by last week. Actually, the original plan was week before. Last week was my default. Now, I'm happy to say I have the 3 reports already done, and I'm just finishing off and revising the narratives to make sure they have all the different elements that you can see. And then, so these would be available by the end of this week. I am declaring it to the internet that they would be ready, and those would be just $50 to get those samples, specially curated to have certain elements so that you can see how they work in the reports and narratives. So they will all come together. So 3 reports and 3 narratives together in one booklet, creative writing samples. So you'd get those 6. And of course, because this is the type of person I am, I'm going to include the 5 paragraph breakdown for the narratives, for the reports, and maybe 1 page of information on something that I think is important for the narratives. So yes, I'm saying these are just straight up samples, but I'm going to sneak in at least one detail that I think would help you. as well as your practice. So that is it. And to get a copy, you can WhatsApp me, you can message me on Facebook, you can send me an email. But of course, as you can imagine, WhatsApp is the most immediate and direct, and it's on my phone and I can't miss it. I tend to check Facebook like once a day, sometimes every other day in terms of messages. But with the WhatsApp, I check every day, several times a day. So you're more likely to get me to see with the WhatsApp. And here's the number 7174993. And you can get me on that if you want to get a copy of any of the things that I mentioned. And I am spending the rest of today and tomorrow refining those things. So I'm hoping to have it available by Thursday. The last one, which is the CW samples. Yeah, hoping to have that one done by Thursday. Like I said, the reports are done. I'm gonna finish off the narratives, if not today, by tomorrow, and then I'm adding in just a couple more details that should help you as well. All right, so that is it today. I went a little bit over time, and I don't know, I really do try to keep it into 1 hour, but it doesn't quite work out like that. But I hope that this session was helpful and that you got some guidance, some information, you know what you're doing so that you can maximize the use of the time. Like I said, we have a few weeks left. I think like about what, 6 or 7 weeks. I checked and I can't remember. One, two, three, four, five, six. Yeah, 6 weeks. We have 6 weeks left, and a lot can be done in 6 weeks, but only if you have a plan and a system and a structure that you're working toward so that SEA would be as peace filled as possible. If you're not already a member of SEA Peace Filled, please join because there's lots of conversation about math and grammar and all the other things there, as well as these lives are archived there, but they're also on YouTube. So thank you very much for joining me today. For those of you who were able to get the whole thing, if you're looking at the recording, I appreciate you. Please, 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 I want to help you as much as I can, but I need to find out, what your challenges are. So send me questions, ask me questions, WhatsApp the questions, you know, messenger the questions so that I can include answers as best as I can in the lives. Okay? So have a wonderful rest of today. Happy and safe carnival for those of you who are partaking. Be safe. Those of you who are not, be safe, and enjoy yourselves. Find some time to take a break. All right? Find some time to take a break this weekend. All right, guys, have a wonderful one. Take care. Bye bye. See you next week.